My name is Captain Jeremy MacDonald. I am the head of an organization called Capability Development, which is basically a research and development arm for training at Canadian Forces Base Gagetown. There's actually a number of different programs that we're using. The one I showcased here today was just one called Canadian Forces Direct Action, and it was actually a mod of SWAT 4 that we created to be a training tool to teach people how to work in an urban setting or work inside of a building, and how to use judgment on the use of force. SWAT 4 is based on police tactics. It's being a member of an emergency response team or a SWAT team, and what they do is they'll go into a building and basically try and secure a situation. So if there's somebody with weapons and some hostages, they'll actually go in and try and restrain the suspects and save the hostages. So we're doing the exact same thing. It's putting people in scenarios where they have to go into a room and decide what they're going to do to resolve the situation. So unlike most video games, which is we'll call unmitigated use of force, many video games are running and gunning. So you shoot down 100 bad guys, you get 10 million points, and you're the winner. That's not the type of training that we do. We actually have rules and laws that we follow about the use of force, and we are trying to reinforce those laws and rules in the video games that we select. The benefits, there are a number of really positive things that come out of this. The first, if you understand learning, there's several different domains that are involved with learning. When the guys are out training in the real world and kicking indoors and barging into a room, they're moving, it's physical. They're working in the psychomotor domain. What we can do with a video game is exercise the cognitive domain, or basically how they decide to go into a room or what they do in a room. So we break away from what they're used to doing, what they're comfortable with doing, and train these other aspects, which actually focus more on the judgment and the decision-making processes. It's actually exercising a different part of the brain.
Oh, okay.
So that's one of the benefits, is we get a different learning event that's also critical to the knowledge that we want to pass on to our soldiers. On a number of the courses, they'll go out to the field, they'll come back, they'll do some simulation, or sometimes we do the simulation first, then the field. What we're actually getting into now is blending the two together. So in some of our shoot houses, as opposed to shooting paper targets, what we'll actually do is do a projection of a virtual target, one that'll interact and react to what you're doing in the physical world. So you'll still get the psychomotor of moving into the room and dominating the room, but you'll also exercise the cognitive of what is that target doing right now, or what is that individual doing, and how do I react to that. Actually, it's very cost effective to do this. It's not large by any stretch of the imagination. One of the things that we're working on right now is building what I call the $500 simulator. So most military simulators are very pricey, very expensive, and they're built in a way that it's from the ground up. So you contract a company to build something. What we're doing now is, by reusing video game technology, it gives us the core engine and the core processes that we can just reuse and build the training tools on top of. So for example, we bought a number of copies of SWAT, we get that for $10. But when we buy that $10 copy, we get a video game that Vivendi spent several $1 million building. So it's accessing what's already been built at a cost-effective price. And then when we start doing things like adding in the weapons that we use, and using things like web cameras, we can get a web camera from Radio Shack integrated in, and then we can track people's motion as they're going into the room and have the characters on the screen react to that. So it's a very advanced and very fun method of learning. There's a number of different technologies that we've been using. One example would be a program called VBS, which is created by Bohemia Interactive. One of the courses in Gagetown has actually proven that they can save $100,000 per course by using video game technology. But it's not just about the money, it's about student learning. And one of the things that they realized by doing simulation first and then confirming by going to the field, they have increased student effectiveness and student success. So they're going from a course that was traditionally a 70% pass rate, they're now at 100. And not only are they at 100, they're at 100 3 weeks faster. So now we're actually thinking of cutting the course duration. So it's more cost savings that go along with that.
Okay.
And there's honestly several straight costs that you can associate. So savings on fuel, savings on personnel time, savings on meals in the field. And then there's the things that are more difficult to calculate, environmental impact. By not having to take vehicles out anymore, we're doing less damage to the environment. By not going to the field as much, The maintenance on the vehicles, we spend less on parts and maintaining the vehicles because we're using them less. So there is a whole series of benefits that can be realized. You have to understand where we work is the Combat Training Center down in Gagetown. It's the home of the Army. So every Army soldier comes to Gagetown for training. So whether you're in the infantry, the armored, the artillery, an engineer, you're coming down our way for training. So there's a very broad spectrum of who's using the tools. Because of that spectrum of training, we actually have a variety of games that focus on the specific training objectives of those courses. So there are actually multiple games that we're using to train the different aspects.
Do the soldiers like it?
It's a culture change.
Oh yeah.
Some do, some don't. But the trend is the use of that is increasing, and I think that goes in line with the general population who's been exposed to video games. So the young soldiers who have played video games their whole lives are more interested in doing that and more apt to see the benefits. Older soldiers, guys who didn't grow up with video games, they're more prone to not like it, and that's a general trend because you get the exceptions either way. But we're finding more and more they expect it as opposed to not want it. We are partnering with a number of organizations. There's a number of organizations domestically, so what we've built we've shared with the RCMP, and because it's another federal government department, we gave it to them for free. We do some work south of the border, so with say the Department of Homeland Security, and there's some sharing agreements already in place that we're using to help share with those. So there's really no money exchanging hands. It's more about intellectual ideas and property and capital that we're sharing. So, do I think that video games are realistic? Is that the question?
No, do you think the guns in video games
do I think the guns
do a real job?
It depends on how well the game was made. I mean, anything with a plasma rifle, I mean, no, that's obviously no utility for us. But a lot of the games that lend themselves to be serious games, they have done a good job of modeling the weapons and the actions of those weapons. We've actually helped game companies by showing them how weapons operate, showing them how the sounds and what they look like. So they do a really good job of replicating. When we talk about things like weapons capabilities, that's a security concern for us of how effective weapons are. So if I model a weapon in a game and somebody gets access to that, they'd be able to determine, hey, these guys are effective to this range, and build a tactic beyond that. So we do not go and build to an accurate function.
Okay.
We'll generalize, and what we do is basically we'll do research and see what's on open source. Information. So we'll see what Google says, what the effectiveness of a weapon is.
Everybody knows, that's it.
That's it. So we are very concerned about security and capabilities. So we do not have any realism to that effect in our applications.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And the reality of it is, we're not teaching people how to shoot. The soldiers who are using our applications, they know how to shoot. What we're teaching them is things like the judgment of when to shoot. So whether or not the bullet travels 100 meters or 500 meters is irrelevant. It's the trigger pull and whether that was a legal decision to do those things.
Absolutely. Okay.